West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Mark, from the same guys who are right now wailing on an endless loop about election interference, we now have the richest man in America, Elon Musk, whose super PAC is offering $47 for each likely Trump voter identified in any of the 7 battleground states, up to $1 million. So that's $47 million in total. That's what this venture would cost. So first of all, is what Elon's doing legal?
I mean, it's not smart. I mean, $47 million. Imagine what you could do with that to actually try to influence the outcome of an election. Whether it's legal or not is very unclear. I've gotten a lot of questions about this. And if he is paying people to simply sign a petition and share names, that is not inherently illegal. There's nothing about that violates the criminal laws. If he were to be paying people to register to vote or to go to be a different circumstance, but it doesn't seem like that or what it is. This seems to be more in the category of a colossal waste of money rather than an illegal scheme.
Well, he should have a lot of experience with that because I think he bought Twitter for $44 billion. So, got a lot of experience in the wasting money category. You know, you and I have spoken about how, despite some of Donald Trump's serious campaign staff, that his operation is relatively unsophisticated. He's got very few field offices in swing states. He's got very little staff in swing states and on and on. Does what Elon's doing here, and with his PAC more broadly, pose a more serious obstacle for Democrats?
I mean, what he's doing here does not pose a serious threat to anyone other than his wallet. Whether his PAC poses a serious threat depends on whether or not that PAC is professionally run. I mean, that's one of the things that is so astounding about, as you point out, the Trump campaign, which is that Donald Trump managed to take a campaign run by professionals and make it amateurish. Elon Musk looks like he is doing the same thing with his own money in a super PAC. That, the kinds of dollars he has could be very effective in a super PAC, but there is no sign that Elon Musk is traveling down the road of competence or effectiveness.
What do you think is, not to ask you to get into Elon's head here, but what do you think is the driving force for his actions here? Do you think that he's just doing this because he wants lower taxes? Do you think that he's doing it because he needs affection from Trump's base? Is he butthurt that he didn't get a pat on the head from Biden and that Tesla, because they're not a union shop, didn't get invited to any of the EV summits? Like, what do you think is the driving force here?
I just want to take a moment to pause on the possibility that Elon Musk is doing all of this because the White House had a meeting and he wasn't invited. Like, think about that for a second. The most substantive argument you offered is that there was a summit of meetings of car manufacturers that were unionized, and because Tesla's not unionized, he wasn't invited. And as a result, he is now blowing millions and billions of dollars in the case of Twitter to sort of make up the emotional hurt. Shouldn't he just buy himself some ice cream?
Yeah, I mean, we really are in the era of the most fragile egos in history right here.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, between him and Donald Trump, who is constantly live tweeting at Fox News every time they have a guest on he doesn't like. I mean, these are some very, very fragile people.
Yeah.
Snowflakes even. But in terms of why he's doing this, look, I think it is a combination of love and affection. And he doesn't get love and affection from the left. He now finds that he does get love and affection from the right. And so, like in many respects, Donald Trump, who is just endlessly drawn to people who will simply flatter him because he wants that and needs that affirmation. There's a part of me that thinks that maybe that's what's going on with Elon Musk. He just, for all of his billions of dollars, there is something deeply empty inside of him. Maybe a song from Laura Trump would fill
That's right. I knew he'd be able to fit one in there. Elon himself said this at Donald Trump's Butler, Pennsylvania rally just a few days back.
President Trump must win to preserve the Constitution. He must win to preserve democracy in America.
That Trump must win to preserve the Constitution. We've done a lot of episodes of Democracy Watch. What is your reaction to Elon saying that?
Okay, so I know a fair bit about the Constitution, and I suspect Elon Musk does not. We definitely don't need Donald Trump to protect the Constitution. I mean, Donald Trump is a threat to the U.S. Constitution. Donald Trump is a threat to the tradition in this country of liberal democracy, of free and fair elections. He is weaponizing every provision of the law and the Constitution that he can to undermine the fundamental rights protected in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution more broadly. So Elon, may be able to be an expert on how to take a multi-billion-dollar social media company and run it into the ground. He should leave the constitutional analysis to the rest of us.
What does it say, Mark, more broadly, that you've now got one billionaire on stage at that rally advocating for another billionaire on stage at that rally, while both presenting themselves as these working class champions, even as both are admittedly hostile to workers and both very focused on simply hoarding their own wealth?
Okay, so I'm going to give you there was at least one billionaire on that stage.
That's fair. I'll take that.
Let us just start there. Elon Musk, no question, multi-billionaire, very, very wealthy man. Donald Trump, J.B. Pritzker at the Democratic National Convention kind of made a joke about the question of Donald Trump's billionaire-ish, whatever the right phrase is. But look, I think that it is a sign that Donald Trump wants to be in a club with people like Elon Musk, that he had him on the stage jumping around. But it also goes to show the moral and ideological and philosophical bankruptcy of the Republican Party. For all of Donald Trump's saying that he did not approve of or read Project 2025, we know this much about Donald Trump. He is not there to enact policies to help average everyday Americans. He did not support everyday Americans when he was in the White House the last time. He cut taxes on the wealthiest. He tried to repeal Obamacare, which is an essential lifeline for everyday Americans. He did nothing to make their lives better. And so the idea that somehow Donald Trump, even on a stage alone, would be a representative of everyday Americans is laughable. But when you add Elon Musk, it almost adds a theater of the absurd to the laughableness of it.
Right. I do want to finish off with this, and this is a little bit of an allusion to what we've been talking about in this episode, but also what we've spoken about in previous episodes, and that is this idea that because Donald Trump is running such an unsophisticated operation, even with people who know how to run real campaigns, does that suggest that he's not actually interested in doing what he needs to do to win these battleground states, to open up get out the vote efforts and field offices, because he is just that committed to his legal apparatus that he could then use to wield as a cudgel against Democrats in terms of getting people to just refuse to certify or say that he won in the aftermath of the election, regardless of what the votes actually look like?
Yeah, so let's go back in time here and towards the beginning of this campaign, say a year or so ago. What were we talking about? We were talking about Donald Trump's legal problems and his use of his campaign as a way to pay his own legal bills. The use of his PAC, the use of various committees to pay the legal expenses for him and other people around him. So when you think about Donald Trump as a figure, this is someone who has always prioritized using the legal system and having politics support that, as opposed to the other way around, which is being fundamentally a candidate and campaigning, and the legal system is in support of that. Donald Trump has said, don't worry about voting. Donald Trump has said the RNC shouldn't spend money on get out the vote. They should only spend money on hiring lawyers to make it harder to vote and easier for them to cheat after the election. And now, as we sit just a few weeks before the election, we have seen the results of that. We have seen a flood of litigation aimed at the first prong of that, making it harder to vote. We are now starting to see the seeds of the second prong of that, the litigation aimed at certification, the litigation aimed at giving discretion to election deniers, the easier to cheat part. And so Donald Trump always wants to figure out how to use the legal system in order to undermine, whether it's fair business practices, treating his workers correctly, or whether it is to undermine free and fair elections. That is who he is, and that's what we need to be prepared for.
It is Wednesday, the 9th of October of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef, and we will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests? And I'm talking about those Opus Dei freaks. Well, not only them, but yeah, they're there. Boy, I tell you, old beer kegger Brett, he got a little sweet deal there, didn't he? Yep. President of these United States stepping in. Now, Trump said he was going to be a protector of women. He just didn't quite finish the sentence. He is the protector of women's, assailants. He protects the rapists, which is always so rich coming from a rich guy like Trump, who would pal around at Studio 54, and you know what he was doing in the women's bathrooms? I gotta tell you, it wasn't like patting butts. I'm just saying. Okay, so it was just rich coming from this guy saying that immigrants, the kind that work at his hotels for, I don't know, not much, that they're rapists, they're drug addicts, they're thieves. All my friends, we were laughing he's describing himself. Yep. Anybody who knows anything about New York real estate, especially the commercial kind, knows where Trump was. Yeah, he built the New York skyline. Give me a break. That is just so... They just bald-faced lie. And people across America, there's people out here in Rogue River, the place in the area I affectionately call Sundown Town, Southern Oregon. Yes. Yes. Anyway, there's folks out here who actually believe that Trump built the New York skyline. It is so ludicrous. Of course, these are the same people who are now arguing with me about the ability of the government to control the weather. Okay. On one hand, God created this, and the climate's been changing on its own for so many millennia, and there's the proof. And so, therefore, man has no ability to control it. And then, in the same next sentence, they are claiming that, but the government has a Jewish space laser weather machine. And they're directing it at only the MAGA areas, as if, there's not people like us in those MAGA areas too. These people are just so sick, because if they were aiming a Nazi space laser, They wouldn't care whether there was blue or red there. They're just going to annihilate the whole thing. Hey, that's the cost of doing business in war. So, we had, as reported here yesterday, the end of the largest dam removal here out on the West Coast, on the Klamath River, for aging, decaying dams that were aging and decaying almost 30 years ago. They were in the midst of being decommissioned. Now, of course, since they had to have this partnership of private and anything that might have been controlled by a public utility, they had to privatize it. So, a company did that decades and decades and decades and decades ago when Reagan decided, hey, public utilities are a sign of Satan and communism, same thing. So, Pacific Corp, a division of Berkshire Hathaway, by the way, bought up these dams. And in the midst of it, of course, these dams, 4 of them in the Klamath River system, as what we're talking about, ranging in height from 38 feet to 119 feet, built in the early part of the 20th century, were old and decaying and falling apart. And the FERC was not going to allow them to stand as they were, and they needed to be retrofitted. The company made a business decision that it would have been costly, too costly, to retrofit them as needed. So they were being decommissioned, and in the process were decommissioned. Environmentalists, or as they're called out here by MAGA, eco-Nazis. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Along with the Yurok tribes and 4 other tribes. I'm sorry I don't have the names of them right in front of me at the moment. But the Yuroks were in the lead. Partnered, and I got to tell you, partnered with farmers, even though there's some like large landowners who said, we didn't want this. As I look back at the beginning of it, because I got to say, you can't be an expert on everything, but I was well aware of these dam removals, and it would be nice to have the salmon back. So partnered with farmers, tribes, anglers, save the forest, save the rivers, etc., etc., etc. And over the course of almost 30 years of legal wrangling, 4 years ago, almost 5, everything was put in place, and the dams were beginning to be taken down. The last one was taken down at the end of summer, and as reported yesterday, the first Chinook was discovered swimming in a part of the river that Chinook had not been swimming in for over 100 years when the dams were first built. Now that's happy news, except to MAGA. They got a whine about everything. So now we're hearing about how corrupt government had everything to do with this. It was corrupt government. They just rammed this down our throats over 30 years. I keep reminding folks. You had 30 years to whine, and it wasn't government. It was a private corporation. Oh, but that's Buffett. Buffett owns Berkshire Hathaway. They had to look it up. And he did that on purpose because he knows how we think down here. And I'm like, oh, God, there's other people here in America that don't think anything like you chemtrail freaks. So shut up. Anyway, they're just going on and on and on, and how the dirty lying Injuns, I am serious, the racism to Native Americans here runs deep, only because they had a few massacres right up into the early part of the 20th century, of the 1900s. They had Indian massacres in the 1900s. I take it back. Just around the time the first of the dams were built. I'm just saying. Yeah. So they are eco-Nazis. The stewards of the land are eco-Nazis. And the people who are now whining about, oh, there's heavy metals in the sediment and everything, disregarding the fact that for, I don't know, forever, we said that you idiots using mercury and arsenic to get at your little gold nuggets is harming the environment. Oh, you're just a bunch of eco-Nazi hippies. And now these people are whining about, oh, there's heavy metals now in the water as the water's being released from behind the dams. So they want to whine about Buffett. They want to whine about everything. I just said, look, you had 30 years to whine about this. Why are you whining now after the fact? And if you want to whine about Buffett, how about whining? And this is a truism, though people don't know. The Kochs closed the mills here in this part of the state. Why? Because they were becoming too costly to operate. They made a business decision. They didn't give an F about all those people that vote for fascism, though it helps. And in the midst of it, people didn't even know that the Kochs owned Georgia Pacific. Oh no, that's Georgia Pacific. Yeah. All right, look it up. And it turns out that the Kochs pretty much had a monopoly on all the mills here in Oregon, at least this part of the state, in what I affectionately refer to as Sundown Town, Southern Oregon. Yep, the clan will ride. So that's what's happening out here. Dirty lying Injuns. And the reason that the salmon are coming back. And I'm like, I thought that would have been a good thing. I was so happy. But no. People got to whine about everything. I don't know. It's a sickness. And I suppose when you're weak of mind, you're easily manipulated to believe bullshit like Jewish space lasers controlling the weather and we're targeting hurricanes for specific areas to hurt them. What? Oh, God. Okay, enough of that. I think I should give you a rundown on what we have in store for you here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy as we begin this fine Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Now, I know it seems like a rather untoward to those that are not initiated into the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy style, but it refers to really simply a lovely egg dish with a velvety hollandaise sauce. And maybe some ham involved too. Maybe. And jambone. Anyway, the legality of Musk's vote-buying scheme for Trump is questionable, but his need to buy love is not in dispute. Yeah, he's like here. Carrying on here, the former executive director for the San Jose, California Police Officers Union pleaded guilty in federal court that she illegally imported fentanyl and other synthetic opioids from half a dozen countries. So, yeah, I guess it wasn't drag queens. It wasn't trans people. And apparently it wasn't any of those dirty rapist immigrants, drug addicts, bringing their drugs. Apparently not. Nope. White lady. Police union head. Okay. With less than a month before people go to the polls, the MAGA State Election Board of Georgia is embroiled in a fight with Fulton County, the most populous county in Georgia. Or as some people like to say, lots of black people. Well, they're in a fight with Fulton County over a monitoring team to observe the county's election practices. Yep. Okay. And South Carolina prison officials told a death row inmate that he gets to choose between a firing squad, the electric chair, and lethal injection for his November 1st murder by the state. That's what I call it. After the break, we move to the chef's table where a Belarusian American had his prison sentence extended amid the continuous crackdown on dissent in Belarus. And the MI5 Director General, Ken McCallum, said his agents are facing a staggering rise in attempts at assassination, sabotage, and other crimes on UK soil by Russia and Iran. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Follow me on social media at Justice Putnam. You will be able to then have quick access to the show notes and links diaries posted on Daily Kos 10 minutes before showtime so that you can read the full reportage by the actual reporters. So do that. Thank you. All right. This first offering, speaking of which, is by the staff at the Associated Press. The former executive director for Northern California Police Union pleaded guilty yesterday, Tuesday, in federal court to charges she illegally imported synthetic opioid pills from India and other countries. Joanna Marian Segovia, who was executive director of the San Jose Police Officers Association, was charged last year with unlawfully importing thousands of Valeriol fentanyl pills. She faces up to 20 years in prison. Segovia's plea before a federal judge in San Jose was part of an agreement with the U.S. Attorney's Office, which agreed to reduce the severity of her charges. The Mercury News reported she only said yes when asked by the judge to confirm and demonstrate her understanding of her guilty plea. Starting in 2015, Segovia had dozens of drug shipments mailed to her San Jose home from India, Hong Kong, Hungary, and Singapore with manifests listing their contents as wedding party favors, gift makeup, chocolate and sweets, and food supplement. According to a federal criminal complaint, Segovia at times used her work computer to make the orders and at least once used the union's UPS account to ship the drugs within the country, federal prosecutors said. The police association fired Segovia after completing an initial investigation following the charges. Segovia, a civilian, had worked for the union since 2003. Planning funerals for officers who die in the line of duty, being the liaison between the department and officers' families, and organizing office festivities and fundraisers. Federal prosecutors said that in 2019, U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers intercepted a parcel being sent to her home address that contained $5,000 worth of tramadol, a synthetic opioid, and sent her a letter telling her they were seizing the pills. How nice. The next year, CBP intercepted a shipment of tramadol valued at $700 and sent her a seizure letter, the court records show. But federal officials did not start investigating Segovia until 2022, when they found her name and home address on the cell phone of a drug dealer who was part of a network that ships controlled substances mailed or made in India to the San Francisco Bay Area. The drug trafficking network has distributed hundreds of thousands of pills in 48 states, federal prosecutors said. Kate Brumback at the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. With less than a month to go before voters head to the polls, the state election board is embroiled in a fight with Georgia's most populous county over a monitoring team to observe the county's election practices. The monitoring team was part of a resolution of a complaint against Fulton County stemming from the 2020 election. The state election board in May found that the county violated some parts of the state election code. It voted to issue a letter of reprimand, which included instructions for an agreement on a mutually acceptable monitor to be entered into by the board's August meeting. But the county and state election boards have been unable to reach agreement. The county favors a team proposed by Ryan Germany, a former chief lawyer for the Secretary of State's office, and the Atlanta-based Carter Center. The Donald Trump-endorsed majority on the state election board has proposed an alternative slate that includes people who question the results of the 2020 presidential election. That's a nice way of saying they are election deniers. In late August, the county went ahead and hired its team without agreement from the state board, and it has been in place monitoring pre-election practices for over a month. Now remember, the Carter Center, the one that goes around the world and monitors elections for honesty. That is what the MAGA is complaining about. The disagreement between the county and state boards continued to fester and escalated significantly this week. On Monday, the Fulton County Board filed a lawsuit asking a judge to declare that the state board lacks the authority to force it to accept and Fulton County to pay for additional monitors for the 24 election that have been handpicked by certain state election board members. That's a nice way of saying MAGA is making demands. And Fulton County said, we are not going back. Collins at the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. South Carolina prison officials told death row inmate Richard Moore yesterday, Tuesday, that he can choose between a firing squad, the electric chair, and lethal injection for his November 1st execution, which we call murder by state. State law gives Moore until October 18th to decide, or, by default, he will be fried alive. His execution would mark the second in South Carolina after a 13-year pause due to the state not being able to obtain a drug needed for lethal injection. Moore, age 59, is facing the death penalty for the September 1999 shooting of store clerk James Mahoney. Moore went into the Spartanburg county store unarmed to rob it, and the two ended up in a shootout after Moore was able to take one of Mahoney's guns. Moore was wounded, while Mahoney died from a bullet to the chest. He is appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court to stop the execution. Moore, who is black, is the only man on South Carolina's death row to have been convicted by a jury that did not have any African Americans on the pool. If he is executed, he would also be the first person to be put to death in the state in modern times who was unarmed initially and then defended themselves when threatened with a weapon. South Carolina Corrections Director Brian Sterling said the state's electric chair was tested last month. His firing squad has the ammunition and the training, and the lethal injection drug was tested and found pure by technicians at the state crime lab, according to a certified letter sent to convict Moore. How nice. Well, that brings us to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, A Critic's Dilemma. Dramatic presentations examining humanity through the lens of non- or not-quite-human characters are nothing new. In fact, the word robot, found in the title of the new animated The Wild Robot, comes from such an effort by Czech writer Josef Kopek dating back to 1920. In this one, a transportation accident finds their synthetic protagonist, the digital human helper Rosum Unit 734, nicknamed Roz, and wonderfully voiced by Lupita Nyong'o, stranded on an island, of course populated by a variety of talkative creatures. True to its or her programming, Roz attempts offering the manufacturer's stock assistance to the incredulous creatures, and while doing so, accidentally destroys a goose nest, saving only one egg. As Fox, Pedro Pascal points out when it hatches, the gosling will imprint on the first thing it sees. So, all of a sudden, Roz is a mom, and the gosling gets a name, bright bill, and a goal, being ready for the great migration with the other geese come the end of summer. From here, we get a compressed child-rearing narrative, replete with observations on the nature of love, peer pressure, and the difficulties of imparting hard truths, all with lots of sly commentary about their island world, which, not surprisingly, isn't different from the real one. That world comes calling in the closing act, where corporate evil is met with an act of selflessness, which is highlighted because of its non-human source. In addition to its story, The Wild Robot is gorgeously drawn and integrated with a wonderful soundtrack. It's a critic's dilemma because it's so damn good, succeeding where so many animated pictures fail at having legitimate appeal to both kids and grown-ups. More about this one on Oscar night. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Can you tell what a cat is thinking just from looking at it?
Probably not. Cats evolved to be solitary hunters stalking their prey, not social animals like us humans.
And that poker face might be handy while you're out stalking prey, but it's a real problem if humans are trying to figure out whether their pets are in pain. So that's why researchers are trying to read more into feline feelings.
Interesting.
Using artificial intelligence, as they love to do. And I'm Sophie Bushwick, tech editor at Scientific American.
I'm Talika Bose, multimedia editor.
And you're listening to Tech Quickly, the version of Scientific American's Science Quickly podcast that just wants to boop AI on the nose.
Cute.
Right now, if you want to see whether a cat's in pain, you have to take a quiz called the Glasgow Feline Composite Measure Pain Scale.
Interesting.
It's also just called the Glasgow Scale.
Okay.
But The question is, what is on the scale?
Yeah, what is on the scale?
Well, I just so happen to have printed out a couple copies for us to peruse.
You did not.
I did indeed.
Wow.
Take a look at this.
This looks like a BuzzFeed quiz for cat pain, but
so the
a little
least
more
fun
complicated.
kind of BuzzFeed quiz.
Yeah, the least favorite. Wow. Okay, interesting. So I see some little cartoon cats here, and I see their like little ears squashed or upright, and then
you
I
have
see
to say which one is your cat.
Yeah, and then I see a second set of little cartoon cats here, and then their little mouths look to be squished in different ways too.
Yeah, and so you basically choose the picture that best matches the cat, and you also answer questions about its behavior, how does it respond to being petted, you know.
Okay.
And then each of those questions gets a little number associated with it, higher or lower, depending on how much pain it indicates, and then you add them all up at the end to get your pain score.
This looks kind of hard, actually.
It's tricky. So, I mean, can you tell the difference between a cat that is tense/crouched and one that is rigid/hunched?
No, that would be like the same thing to me.
It sounds exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's pretty subjective. You need to make some judgment calls. And, if you're not a veterinarian who sees cats and uses the scale all the time, then it could be an issue.
Absolutely. More subjective, right?
Exactly.
So the idea is that AI might be able to do this better?
Or at the very least, it can do it faster and way more easily than an untrained human could.
So I know freelance science writer Leila Okahata wrote about a study that put AI to the pain detection test.
That's right. Researchers started with photos of 84 cats that were being admitted to a veterinary hospital in Germany. And then they gave the cats in the photos a pain score based on the Glasgow scale that we talked about.
Right.
But also on the amount of pain you'd expect a cat to be in based on whatever injury or illness brought it in. A bone fracture, that's going to be pretty painful.
Youch.
You mean meowch.
No, I don't. Okay, wow, diabolical laugh.
I'm not laughing at the cat's pain. I'm laughing at the cat's pun.
Oh, wow. Did you just make another pun?
I can't help myself.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
I'm just littering the script with them.
Yes, you are.
Litter boxing.
Oh, my God. You did it again.
Yeah. Anyway. The photos are labeled with the pain scores, and then the researchers fed them into two different machine learning algorithms.
Interesting.
So one broke down each photo in great detail by examining 4 specific sites on the cat's faces. These are called landmarks.
Right.
And then the second AI program was a deep learning model that looked at the photo as more of a whole.
Got it. Okay, moment of truth, though. Could the AI read cats' faces?
It did pretty well. The landmark-based model was 77% accurate.
Interesting.
The deep learning one was a little less good. That was 65% accurate. But they think that the deep learning one could improve. This kind of model is just really data hungry.
Needs more pictures of cats.
Exactly. Everyone needs more pictures of cats.
We all do.
Including AI.
Right. So can we learn anything from the AI about reading our cats' faces?
Yeah, that is one of the cool things about this study. So it turns out that for a cat, the eyes are not the windows to the soul. When it comes to accurate pain recognition, you really need to look at your cat's mouth. It's
Meowth.
You did it.
I did it. Okay, can we go beyond pain here? Like, is there an AI that can tell me if a cat is happy, sad, or about to, knock a glass of water onto my laptop?
I mean, that's the goal. A researcher who was not involved in this recent AI study did publish a paper showing that cats can produce almost 300 facial expressions.
Yeah, like I knew this cat that had this look when it was about to take like a bite of my sandwich.
That's very specific.
Yeah, but I feel like it was like its sandwich eating, stealing.
The sandwich eating face.
Yeah, sandwich stealing face.
Expression.
It's like I'm about to swipe your food, stupid human.
I mean, I feel like all cats have that expression at all times.
Yeah, just like, hello, dumb human, feed me.
Yeah.
Give me your stuff. I'm taking your bed.
And your laptop.
Everything that you own.
Everything you own is mine
It's
now.
mine.
So once you know that you can recognize these different expressions, this researcher wants to join forces with the AI researchers to create a model that can detect specific cat emotions based on whatever face it's making. The goal is to eventually be able to just like look at an image of the cat and have the AI detect whatever emotion that cat is feeling.
Got it. Okay, but I've heard that like emotion AI is like really flawed though.
Oh, for sure. I mean, okay, so for instance, what do you think I'm feeling now?
Sad. You look sad. Sad.
Yeah, you're wrong. I am feeling smug and sneaky because I just tricked you into thinking that I was feeling an emotion that I'm not.
Wow.
I mean, look, think about
politician.
Yeah, well, look, if I give you a smile, I could be like, I'm being a politician. I could be saying, oh, I feel happy.
Yeah.
Or I could be saying, I'm being polite. Or I'm holding in a fart right now. And the AI, it can't tell that we're a bunch of lying liars who lie like that.
Interesting. So the idea is that cats don't lie about their emotions the way that people do?
Well, it's more that with cats and with other pets, we have no way to ask them how they feel.
Right.
So even if you have an imperfect tool, like an emotion recognition AI, it's valuable because it can help us cross that communication barrier.
Got it.
And these researchers do want to expand their work to study emotion in other animals.
Right.
We've also talked on this podcast about using AI to decipher wild animal communication.
Interesting.
So, we could be just a few data sets away from letting our pets practically talk to us.
Okay, that would be so cool.
Yes, I want my pet to talk to me.
Same.
With its furry little face.
I would love to know when my sandwich was about to be stolen, because this has happened numerous times, Angela.
Yeah. Although I do worry that when I think my cat is... I do worry that I think my dog is, like, gazing lovingly into my eyes. He's really just like, give me a treat.
Give me food. Do we really want to know? That's the thing. Do we want to know?
I mean, once we open that Pandora's cat box.
Oh, my God. You did it. Litter box, cat box. You can't stop today.
Schrodinger's box? No, let's not mention Schrodinger. That guy was a jerk.
Yeah. No. Furry little box.
Science Quickly is produced by Jeff Del Vicio, Talika Bose, Kelso Harper, and Corinne Leong. Our show is edited by Ella Fetter and Alexa Lim. Our theme music was composed by Dominic Smith.
Don't forget to subscribe to Science Quickly wherever you get your podcasts. For more in-depth science news and features, go to scientificamerican.com. And if you like the show, give us a rating or review.
For Scientific American's Science Quickly, I'm Sophie Bushwick.
I'm Talika Bose. See you next time.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. With Hurricane Milton adding insult to Hurricane Helene's injury, state officials in Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina are making accommodations to help as many affected citizens to vote as possible. Thousands of voters are temporarily or indefinitely displaced, polling places have been destroyed, many roads are still impassable, and election workers evacuated. Not a good setup for one of the most pivotal elections of our lifetime. For 13 Florida counties, Governor Ron DeSantis has allowed mail-in ballots to be sent to addresses other than the one on file, directed that state workers be allowed to serve as poll workers, granted flexibility to local election offices to consolidate or move polling places, and suspended noticing and other rules. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger said only 3 precincts sustained damage, and most other issues were power-related. In North Carolina, 13 counties were granted emergency rules by the North Carolina Election Board, including creating temporary locations or central so-called super precincts where any county voter can vote. For absentee ballots, voters or immediate relatives can drop off ballots at any county office, and bipartisan election teams will visit shelters and relief centers to offer and collect absentee ballots. 6 precincts and 2 county election offices in Tennessee were also affected. We have links to each state's election guidance at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1888. That was the day that the United Hebrew Trades was founded in New York City. The new effort was patterned after the United German Trades. The goal of the organization was to organize Yiddish-speaking workers. Individual Jewish workers had been active in the burgeoning U.S. trade union movement since the 1850s. But the United Hebrew Trades marked the first time for such a broad-based collective effort to organize Jewish workers. 3 of the early founders were Bernard Weinstein, Morris Hillquit, and Abe Kane. Weinstein was a young shirt maker turned union activist. Morris Hillquit would become one of the leaders of the American Socialist Party in the United States. Hillquit was born in Latvia and moved with his family to the Lower East Side of New York. Like many Jewish workers, Hillquit found a job in the city's garment industry. He later graduated from law school Abe Kane was born in Belarus. He was one of the leading voices in Jewish journalism in the United States. In 1877, he founded the newspaper, the Jewish Daily Forward, which still exists today. Under the leadership of these men, the United Hebrew Trades quickly became a presence in New York City. In March of 1890, 4,000 Jewish workers commemorated the Paris Commune with a march through the city. They more than doubled that number just 2 months later on May Day. By Labor Day, 15,000 Jewish workers marched together. These public demonstrations showed the power of Jewish workers. By 1910, the United Hebrew Trades had swelled to 106 unions. 150,000 men and women were members, including thousands of Italians and other nationalities. By the 1930s, the United Hebrew Trades had reached its peak of 250,000 members. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 51 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting temperatures much cooler than what we've had previously, only highs in the mid to upper 70s, considerably cooler. Partly cloudy this morning is probably why, then becoming cloudy during the afternoon. Highs, and once again, in the mid to upper 70s. Winds out of the west at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Overcast overnight with lows in the low 50s, winds light and variable. Then partly cloudy skies tomorrow with highs inching up around 80. Winds light and variable. Ragweed pollen is rated moderate here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 20 parts per million. And that daytime UV index is moderate at a fall level of 4. How nice. Looks like barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.07 inches. Visibility is at 7 miles. And relative humidity is at 100%. Muggy. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 61 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 62 degrees with rain and a severe advisory for rain, heavy rain, and flooding. Rome is 75 degrees and fair. Kabul is 58 degrees and clear. Hong Kong is 68 and cloudy. Tokyo is 61 and clear. Auckland, New Zealand is 48 and fair. San Francisco, California is 58 degrees and mostly cloudy. Chicago, Illinois is 66 degrees and sunny. And New York, New York is 65 degrees Fahrenheit and partly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Karamanu at the Associated Press World Desk. brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. A Belarusian American has had his prison term extended to a total of 13 and a half years in the latest move in a relentless crackdown on dissent by Belarus's repressive government. Yuris Zayunukovych, a lawyer who has dual Belarusian and U.S. citizenship, has been held behind bars since 2021. He was convicted on accusations of plotting to assassinate Belarus's authoritarian president Alexander Lukashenko and then seize power, and was given an 11-year sentence in September of 2022. He then had 6 months added to his sentence later that year. In August, a court in Belarus handed Zayunukovych, age 46, an additional 2-year sentence on charges of malicious disobedience to the prison administration, according to the Vyazna human rights group, a ruling that only became known now. The authorities have denied Zayunukovych access to a lawyer since March. He repeatedly went on hunger strikes, and his health has seriously deteriorated in custody, according to Vyazna, which said that he faced harassment and intimidation by prison authorities. Last month, Zayunukovych featured in a propaganda film aired by state television that described the purported plot he was convicted of. The U.S. Embassy in Belarus condemned airing the documentary and rejected the baseless claims it contained in a statement in September. It emphasized that it will continue to advocate for the improved welfare of this detained American. In 2020, Belarus was rocked by the largest ever protests following an election that gave Lukashenko a 6th term in office, but was condemned by the opposition and the West as fraudulent. And who in the West monitored that election? Why, yes, that would be the Carter Center. Wallace at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Britain is facing a staggering rise in attempts at assassination, sabotage, and other crimes on UK soil by Russia and Iran as the two states recruit criminals to do their dirty work, the head of Britain's Domestic Intelligence Agency said yesterday, Tuesday. MI5 Director General Ken McCallum said his agents and police have tackled 20 potentially lethal plots backed by Iran since 2022 and warned that it could expand its targets in the United Kingdom if conflicts in the Middle East deepen. So far, the threats have been aimed at Iranians abroad who oppose the country's authorities. But McCollum said there is the risk of an increase in or broadening of Iranian state aggression in the UK if the Middle East crisis escalates, with Israel launching a major attack in response to Iran's recent military barrage. In a rare public speech, setting out the major threats to the UK from both states and militant groups, McCallum argued that hostile states, radicalized individuals, and a revived Islamic State group have combined to create the most complex and interconnected threat environment we have ever seen. The number of state threat investigations undertaken by MI5 has risen by 48% in the past year, with Iran, Russia, and China the main perpetrators. McCallum said Russia's military intelligence agency was trying to use arson, sabotage, and more to create mayhem on the streets of Britain and other European countries. Both Iran and Russia often turn to criminals, from international drug traffickers to low-level crooks, to carry out their illegal deeds. Britain is not alone in pointing a finger at Moscow and Tehran. Germany has arrested several people for spying or planning attacks on behalf of Russia. Britain is not alone in pointing a finger at Moscow and Tehran. Germany has arrested several people for spying or planning attacks on behalf of Russia. In May, Sweden's domestic security agency accused Iran of using criminal networks to target Israeli or Jewish interests in the Scandinavian country. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. Ominous, isn't it? But you do know that Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.